had been discussing analogies from the perspective of boundary layer analysis. One particular case which will be of very significant interest will be flows through pipe, real turbulent flows through circular pipes. So, this will be the hopefully last lecture on analogies and will gently lead us to correlations, not all of which you need to remember, but there are a handful of equations or correlations in chemical engineering practice you ought to remember. We come across one today. As must be clear from the length of time I am devoting in these lectures to the analogies, analogies must have played a very important role and must have been a significant focus of efforts to put chemical engineering practice on some kind of analytical understanding level. As we had done earlier, we will take some time to also talk about that continuing theme of dimensional analysis. It is little by little that I want to develop this important faculty for understanding experimental data, and sometimes you come across surprises you would have probably never imagined. So, again we will have a point here to make. As I once remarked, Reynolds and Prandtl are two people who made some bold progress even when experimental data were not available. I spoke about Prandtl, he having identified the fluid flow over solid surface as comprising of two parts, the boundary layer and then the bulk flow. Now, it looks like in hindsight it looks like a very simple elementary concept today, but at the time Prandtl was active, that was not so straightforward. Reynolds likewise had this insight that led to other important developments. He felt that momentum and heat transfer analogy should exist. Now, that became the nucleus which triggered carefully conducted experiments distilled into these useful correlations in dozens, and still more are being proposed to date. Prandtl, on the other hand, before even diffusivities, eddy diffusivities measured, he realized that in the viscous sublayer, you remember under the fully developed boundary layer, I had shown a region close to the solid by a dashed line. The distance between that and the plate was shown diminishing as you go away from the leading edge. That viscous sublayer, Prandtl proposed that in this sublayer the eddy diffusivity, eddy transfer does not play a part, and he said EV and EH must both equal 0. And in the turbulent core, he proposed that the molecular transport is unimportant. It turns out this picture visualized by Prandtl holds good when Prandtl number is close to 1, which means basically situation like gases. Okay. When the Prandtl number becomes large or Schmidt number becomes large, we will encounter difficulties. Okay. So, this is the first part that I wanted to tell you about. Colburn, again a prominent chemical engineer, made a modification of Reynolds analogy which brought one of the surprises. His modification of Reynolds analogy could explain data even Prandtl number was large, and his correlation, his equation appears this way. This is Stanton number. Capital S, small t is Stanton number. Stanton number for heat transfer on average is the heat transfer coefficient on average, H average, divided by Cp ux bar rho or Cpg, ux bar rho being the mass velocity. And this is equal to 1 by 2 the fanning friction factor F by Prandtl to the power 2 by 3. So, the Colburn analogy or modification of Prandtl's analogy amounted to this, which means basically Stanton H average, which is nothing but the ratio of the Sherwood to the product of Reynolds and Schmidt. Stanton H average times Prandtl to the power 2 by 3 is nothing but this H average by Cp g Prandtl to the power 2 by 3, that is equal to F by 2. And we know function fanning friction factor would be uniquely represented as function of Reynolds number. So, some function psi of Re, that entire graph of universal friction factor is represented by this relation. And this particular group, heat transfer group, is known in literature as JH. There are two J factors, JH for heat transfer and JD for mass transfer. Okay. So, JH is nothing but Stanton H average times Prandtl to the power 2 by 3 or H average by Cp ux bar rho Prandtl to the power 2 by 3, and that is equal to F by 2, function of Reynolds. Holds good even when Prandtl number is large. Okay. So, this represented an important development in terms of a correlation. Later, Chilton made further improvement. Chilton-Colburn analogy was to bring in an analogy for the mass transfer, and it appears like this. Analogous to Stanton H average, we have Stanton D average. Analogous to Prandtl, we have Schmidt to the power 2 by 3, and that means this Schmidt to the power 2 by 3, and Stanton number is F average by C ux bar, and C is the concentration, moles per volume. This is a mass transfer group called as J sub D and is again equal to F by 2 and same function of Reynolds number psi of Re. This agrees with experimental data when Schmidt number is not too large. We need obviously some correlations in order to be able to predict the Nusselt or Sherwood number from Stanton numbers. So, Stanton H average and Stanton D average for heat transfer and mass transfer, Stanton numbers are given by the same form as we expected earlier, but this is based on experimental data. Obviously, in the Stanton H we will have Prandtl, in Stanton D we will have Schmidt. It is not very difficult to remember, even though I do not expect you to remember this. F 1 by 2 F 1.2 plus 11.8 F by 2 to the power 0.5, and then Prandtl minus 1 Prandtl to the power minus 1 by 3, Schmidt minus 1 Schmidt to the power minus 1 by 3, rest is same. Okay. So, this pair of correlations works well in getting us the data on heat transfer and mass transfer. You are seeing the correlations, experimental correlations appearing in form of dimensionless groups or dimensionless numbers. I had been talking about Buckingham pi theorem, we will come to that shortly. I also been talking about representation of data in a compact fashion or in some kind of universal correlations, reduction in number of parameters and independent variables. Okay. I want you to have a glimpse of it once again today, but before that let me now explain to you that we do not expect any analogy between heat, mass and momentum transfer, nothing to salvage, if the Schmidt number is large or Ed by d and Eh by alpha do not equal Ev by nu. Main point is when Schmidt number is large, very large, we do not expect analogies. It is another viewpoint. I have come across later papers which question the very basis of analogies. Particularly important papers are from Churchill's group. We might have an opportunity to talk about those views later. But for the time being and at the graduate level, it is sufficient to note that analogies can be useful, but should not be treated as sacrosanct. I once remarked that the original work on mass transfer measurements appeared from Gilliland's group. Sherwood and Gilliland proposed the correlations. They mostly worked with gas liquid or vapor liquid systems. When you limit yourself to the gas liquid or vapor liquid systems, Schmidt number cannot be very large. So, range of Schmidt numbers explored necessarily was limited, maximum about 2.5. However, if one were to be ambitious to develop correlations of more general validity, that means the correlations had to apply even to liquid solid systems, then it was imperative that the experiments be conducted on measurements of mass transfer over much larger ranges of Schmidt numbers, and that is where people moved from the weighted wall tower, where a volatile liquid flows down along the periphery and a gas moves through the core either counter currently or co-currently in the core. This does not give you much wide range of Schmidt numbers, and that is where situations relevant to Grad-Nussel theory came into being. Flow of liquids through soluble pipes. So, test sections were made from molten benzoic acid and other substances which had low solubility in water, sparingly soluble solids, and then by combining variations in viscosity of liquid that is possible and choice of the molecular weight of the solute, one could go for very large Schmidt numbers, and there came out some important correlations valid for large Schmidt numbers. Although I had described weighted wall towers to you in words very briefly, I will show you a sketch and it will give an idea how an experimental weighted wall tower would appear. Here is a pipe which is narrowed down here and renders liquid in this reservoir to flow down along the inside of this pipe. So, you have this as the test section. This portion is the feed reservoir, the liquid which is fed guided by this tapered portion on the inside of the pipe, and this is the length of test section. The liquid film stays in contact with gas or vapor here and then gets collected here and removed from. The gas is moving from bottom to top in counter current fashion here. Since we know the inner diameter of this pipe and we would be able to measure or estimate the liquid film thickness, we have a well defined gas liquid interfacial area in this test section. So, if one were to measure the difference in the vapor concentration highest here in the outgoing gas and maybe 0 or whatever inlet concentration, and we know the gas flow rate, we would know the molar flow rate of the vapor which has been acquired by evaporation or vaporization across that interface of known area. Once we know the total molar flow rate of the vapor picked up divided by the area of this test section, we know the flux, and since we know the partial pressure which will be also the vapor pressure at the surface and the average pressure in the bulk, driving force would be known. So, the mass transfer coefficient could be estimated. No, this is a case where we are talking of volatile liquid. So, a liquid like say acetone is fed here, it flows in the form of film, and this is dry air going from here. It could have been water, dry air, and then we measure the difference in concentration. Gas flow rate is volumetric flow rate is known, so we know how many moles of vapor have been picked up and across this area. So, we divide the molar flow rate or molar evaporation vaporization rate divided by this known area, and you get flux. Driving force is the saturation pressure here, which will be the vapor pressure, minus average pressure here, and so we will be able to calculate the mass transfer coefficient. In this case, it will be kg, because we will be talking of the vapor phase transfer, right. This again highlights the importance of a model contactor. Weighted wall tower is a model contactor. Model contactor is one for which the interfacial area is well defined. If we had to think of maybe taking this volatile liquid in a stirred tank kind of thing and have air sparge in the form bubbles with different sizes and bubble size distribution, we would never be sure of what the area is, and therefore, we would not be able to infer the mass transfer coefficient. So, the area has to be known if you want information on mass transfer coefficient. In those systems, you have that engineering approach of clubbing the mass transfer coefficient with specific area, and we talk of something like KLA or KGA without knowing what actual mass transfer coefficient is, because we may not be sure of the specific area itself. Okay. But leave that aside, that may come at a later time. So, is the weighted wall tower clear? I can choose different liquids, I can choose different gases, but I can't change the properties much. So, Schmidt number I expect I would not be able to exceed by much over 2.5. So, the usual range of Schmidt numbers is 0.6 to 2.5. Reynolds number was varied by Sherwood and Gilliland over 2000 to 35,000. Pressure was varied from 0.1 to 3 atmosphere, and they gave a correlation later which was modified by Linton and Sherwood with the soluble pipe. I am coming to this model now. This I have talked of, this I have explained earlier. This is the test section. There may be section of steel pipe here before and after. This is the only portion which is made from molten benzoic acid cast in the same shape and dimensions. So, you just sandwich this between the two steel pipe sections and you have water flowing through. Length of this test section is known, the inside surface is known. By measuring the benzoic acid concentration in the outlet and subtracting the inlet concentration, you get the difference in concentration multiplied by liquid flow rate, you get molar flow rate like earlier. Divide by the area of this test section and you get the mass transfer coefficient. The concentration difference here will be the solubility at the interface minus the mean concentration in the bulk. So, once again you can get mass transfer coefficient, and with this now you can change the viscosity of liquid, you can choose the solute to be of large molecular weight, so low solubility, etc. And it was done by Linton and Sherwood, and the range of Schmidt numbers was extended from 0.6 to 2.5 of Sherwood and Gilliland to about 3000. Now, that is a large value. Their correlation appeared finally in this form. This is important for us to remember. Sherwood average is 0.023, Reynolds to the power 0.83, Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. Okay. Take a few seconds to watch this correlation, and before I show you the next slide, I have something to tell you about fluid mechanics. So, Sherwood average is 0.023, Reynolds to the power 0.83, Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. If we were to correlate data only for gases, then the power on Schmidt would be better as 0.44. This probably happens because the ripples we had spoken about at interface might influence the gas liquid mass transfer. Okay, now comes my question. From whatever you have known of fluid mechanics so far, and considering this fact that pipelines and flows through pipe are ubiquitous, we come across these everywhere, not just in a chemical plant or refineries, we come across this in transport of crude and other petroleum products, which stretch over thousands of kilometers at times. It is natural to anticipate that a chemical engineer is crudely measured in his abilities in terms of his ability to calculate pressure drop. Has it been impressed on you yet that there is a certain correlation for friction factor you ought to remember? Maybe one of the few correlations I would expect you to remember, but I would expect you to remember it for maybe 3 decades. especially if you are practicing chemical engineering. It's a simple correlation between the friction factor and Reynolds number. Nobody told you? Yeah, graph is one thing, but that's the point. You might not be carrying the graph everywhere. So, the fanning friction factor F equal to 0.046 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2 is one correlation I expect you to remember for a long time. I don't know whether you have been told about this earlier or not. So, how does that correlation relate here to this mass transfer correlation? Please remember, F equal to 0.046 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2, that has been obtained from pressure drop measurements. You just have pipes of different diameters, different lengths, pass liquid at different liquids at different flow rates, collect large body of data, measure pressure drops, convert into friction factor, and come up with that correlation. That came from the pressure drop measurement. This one independently came from mass transfer measurement. Theoretically, I told you that we expect analogy. If that expectation from theory is of general validity, we must be able to see it somewhere manifested in our experimental data. Now, let us see whether we can relate to that expectation. Take this and modify it slightly. Let us play with this equation a bit. Maybe jot this down. Sherwood average is 0.023, Reynolds to the power 0.83, Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. Okay. Now, rewrite this as 0.023 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2 into Reynolds power 1.03. This is same as Reynolds to the power 0.83, and then we have Schmidt to the power 1 by 3 written as Schmidt by Schmidt to the power 2 by 3. Okay. Now, transpose these terms. Take this whole thing over here. So, it becomes Schmidt to the power 2 by 3 by Schmidt. This comes as Reynolds to the power 1.03. This is Sherwood average as we had. What is left on this side then? Right hand side is 0.023 Re to the power minus 0.2. And that is what I want you to know is F by 2, or F is 0.046 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2. Right? Now, observe the left hand side. You see this is Sherwood average by Re to the power 1.03 Schmidt. This is roughly Re. Sherwood average by ReSC is the Stanton D. Okay. So, you see that Stanton D times Schmidt to the power 2 by 3 or JD is equal to F by 2 equal to 0.023 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2. You see now confirmation that the analogies have more substance than what might appear theoretically. It is always satisfying sight to be able to see experiments validating theory. It takes a lot of effort to develop reliable theories. When it happens, it's sheer joy. So, I hope I am giving you some glimpse here that mass transfer information is corroborating the information on momentum transfer. Two very differently originated correlations are consistent. Okay. This should place more faith in what we are trying to analyze. We could write a heat transfer analog of this equation. Sherwood average as 0.023 Reynolds to the power 0.83 Schmidt to the power 1 by 3, which will be Nusselt average. This will have Prandtl to the power 1 by 3, is satisfactory over a fairly broad range of 0.7 to 120. Remember, Prandtl number for water is just about 7. So, this is a fairly broad range of Prandtl numbers, and the analogous heat transfer correlation could be reasonably respectable. The theory predicts as turbulence increases, the power on Reynolds number shifts to 1, and when Schmidt number is greater than 100, then the better correlation has been given by Notter and Schleicher. Sherwood average is 0.0149 Reynolds to the power 0.88 Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. If the Schmidt number is so high as to be in this range 20,000 to over 100,000, then the correlation gives you the Sherwood average slightly lower. So we may not have so much of faith in extending the applicability of this equation to that high Schmidt numbers. 20,000, 100,000, these are the range of, these are the values of Sherwood Schmidt numbers. They are too large for most correlations. Now there are a few precautions we have to take while we apply what we have been talking about. Most of the experimental data are based on evaporating liquids or dissolving solids, and then they give you information about average mass transfer coefficient. Please note this. This is an important point which will be relevant for certain problem solving. The correlations that you have seen here, you have to regard them as giving you averaged mass transfer coefficient, not local mass transfer coefficient. When average mass transfer coefficients and average fluxes are not the only information required, we have to be careful, because one, most of the data are in terms of these kind of transfer coefficients Kg, Kc, Kl for binary systems, Nb equal to 0, but without information on actual solute concentrations. Usually the solute concentrations are low, but we may not know those. So when you have to use the information at these low levels of concentrations of solute, it is advisable that you first convert that information from these transfer coefficients into the generalized reduced mass transfer kind of data, F data, taking this PBM to PBT, taking the ratio of the log mean partial pressure of B to total pressure, or XBM, the so called phase drift factors, as equal to 1. So we translate the original information into F and then we use it at a different level of driving forces. That is what has been demonstrated in one of the solved problems in treble. I advise you to look at. Local mass transfer coefficients might vary from one location to another and in the direction of flow. Suppose we have an immersed object and the flow is taking place at not too small rates, which means we are not restricting ourselves to creeping flow, but moderate values of Reynolds number will see that the boundary layer separates. If you take a spherical object, then the liquid which is flowing around this object will have the front half or the upstream half fairly closely followed by the liquid. The rear half or the downstream surface is where somewhere the boundary layer separates. Where the boundary layer separates, you have the vortices and eddies coming into picture, turbulence coming into picture, and we might have in the momentum transfer the form drag coming into picture. In the front half it is the skin friction. In the rear half or the downstream surface, we will have skin friction as well as form drag, or the vortices and eddies contributing to friction. In cases like these, it is sometimes better to add the information corresponding to skin friction and form drag together. So if you take, say, a laminar boundary layer and wake formation, and fluid is moving perpendicular to a cylinder, for instance, for Reynolds number up to about 25,000, Schmidt number about up to 2.6, we get a correlation of this sort: kg pt by gm. Gm is the mass velocity, Schmidt to the power 0.56 and 0.281 Reynolds to the power 0.4. Reynolds number, when it goes into about this range 0.1 to 10 power 5, the corresponding heat transfer data for Prandtl number up to 1500, fairly large values of Prandtl numbers, Nusselt average comes out to be of this kind. Observe this and you would see what I am trying to tell you. This part 0.15 Reynolds to 0.58 Prandtl to the power 0.3, this is similar to the correlations we have been talking about. The part here would come from the analogous skin friction part. Now there is a long table in treble for variety of experimental situations. One may have to choose a correlation from there. I want you to have a look at it, but remember nothing except this F equal to 0.046 Reynolds to the power minus 0.2. And then there is one correlation which I want you to remember, and about which I had partially spoken earlier, and that is, we will have one problem based on that also. That is Sherwood number equal to 2 plus 0.6 Reynolds to the power half Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. I repeat, Sherwood average is 2 plus 0.6 Reynolds to the power half Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. This is known by two names. One is Frostling equation, F-R-O-S-S-L-I-N-G, Frostling equation, and the other name for the same equation is Ransz-Marshall correlation, R-A-N-Z, Marshall, M-A-R-S-H-A-L-L, Ransz-Marshall correlation. The interesting thing about this correlation, if you recall, I had told you almost anecdotally that it was originally developed based on only 4 data points. Original correlation was developed only based on 4 data points. Subsequently, it was confirmed by hundreds of researchers over more than half a century for hundreds of systems. I guess even as an experimentalist, you need a bit of luck to be able to invent something which is of such wide generality. Doesn't happen very often. What am I talking about? Context of a problem. There are two things. From transport phenomena that you would have studied, think of these two situations. First, from heat transfer. I give you infinite body of liquid, say water, and I give you a hot metal sphere stationary inside this fluid. You think of the heat transfer. You would think of temperature, you would think of temperature profile, you would think of the gradient, Fourier's law, flux, heat transfer coefficient, and so on. I want you to think of also Nusselt number. Heat transfer coefficient will go in Nusselt number. This is one. The second analogous situation, you have infinite body of say water, and I give you a sphere, let us say sugar sphere, or a benzoic acid sphere if you want to be a little more persistent, because it should not dissolve too quickly. If I give you benzoic acid sphere and benzoic acid starts dissolving and diffusing into the bulk of stationary quiescent water, we will have again concentration, concentration profile, gradient of concentration, flux, and mass transfer coefficient. Don't stop at mass transfer coefficient. Come to Sherwood number, Sherwood average. So, on one hand you have Nusselt average, on the other hand you have Sherwood average. Now, the pinpointed question to you is for heat transfer. For quiescent water, steady state heat transfer, so infinite film, does particular numerical value come to your mind in context of Nusselt number? 2. In case of the mass transfer, I have given you a clue. I gave you this Ransz-Marshall correlation where you wrote 2 plus 0.6 Reynolds to the power half Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. Incidentally, that 2 is again analogous to Nusselt equal to 2, Nusselt average equal to 2. So, Sherwood average is actually 2. In fact, the way these correlations have been developed, the convective mass transfer data gave the second part first, 0.6 Re power half Schmidt to the power 1 by 3. But if we were to blindly extrapolate it to 0 Reynolds number, we will get a 0, but we know that we get 2. So, that 2 has been added as an afterthought. So, the correlation again has the flavor of a phenomenological equation, much like that generalized Fickian law I talked of. Okay. There is some history, experimental or otherwise, a part of knowledge which you have, which goes into writing some equation. 2 plus this function of Reynolds and Schmidt did not come from experiments directly. The 2 came from separate experiments. Reynolds number convective term came from separate experiments. They were added together. So, in that sense, this Frostling or Ransz-Marshall correlation is also phenomenological. There is some history to its genesis. Okay. This is something very interesting. Let me ask you, put it in the form of question, and then I'll have a few minutes to talk about dimensionless analysis again. Imagine two situations. You know the classical experiment to verify Stokes' law. You drop a sphere through a stagnant column of liquid and measure the terminal velocity. You change the diameter, you play with the viscosity and so on, and finally derive the equation relating the terminal velocity to the parameters of interest. I am just reminding you of that experiment. If you have not done it already, you would be doing it probably in next semester in fluid mechanics to measure viscosities of liquids. You simply drop these spheres, different materials, different sizes, and measure terminal velocities, and you can measure viscosity. I want to borrow that picture only for visualization. This is one. Let us presume that a centimeter size particular material sphere is dropping at certain terminal velocity. Let me give some value, say 7 centimeter per second, arbitrarily. But I want to now contrast this situation with what might be possibly a candidate analogous situation. Can you suggest to me some analogous situation to this particular one from your basic physics perception? I could have the sphere stationary and fluid moving with the same velocity, 7 centimeter per second. From the relative velocity perspective, the two situations are analogous. Here comes a surprise. If you were to take a soluble sphere, and in one case the sphere is dropping through a liquid which is quiescent, and in another case we have the soluble sphere stationary and the fluid or liquid is moving with the same velocity, you measure the mass transfer coefficients, and the surprise is the mass transfer coefficient is not identical. What could have possibly happened? Even if you don't spell it, if you have perceived the shadow of this explanation, I would say that I am succeeding in transmitting this information adequately. Why would mass transfer coefficient differ if I had a sphere moving through a stagnant liquid, and in the other analogous situation where sphere is stationary, the liquid is moving with the same relative velocity? Something must be different. What is different is what you see as second point here. What happens is, in the case the sphere is falling through a quiescent liquid, ahead of itself, the fluid is stagnant. In the case where the sphere is stationary and a fluid is moving past it, the fluid has potential turbulence inside. Incident fluid, because it's moving, can have these ADs contributing to mass transfer. That is possibly source of the difference. So very subtle differences can exist in measurable practical systems. See, the point is, in case the fluid is moving past the solid surface, it is bringing its own turbulent structure, whatever it is. I may have chosen velocity small enough, but if there are eddies possible to be present, they will be there. And they are coming and hitting this boundary layer. So your ED by nu, that ratio comes into picture, which is absent when your fluid is stagnant. And couple this with a finer point, that convection, whenever it is present in any form, it has very magnified effect compared to diffusion. So even if there are few eddies striking this boundary layer, it will show up in much greater mass transfer coefficient. Having said that, I am ending this lecture with a disclaimer that the distinction between these two situations is not entirely clear, established. So still people like some of you could study these basic concepts. Basic experiments could still be performed. We will stop here for today.